Great to see you here all. My name is Kimmo Kekkonen. I'm working as a head of concepts and strategy here at Solita. And today, this morning, we're gonna talk you more about digital sovereignty. What does it mean, why it matters now, and what you should know when you navigate your cloud strategy in this current climate. We have excellent speakers. Atte Harjanne from Parliament of Finland, so Eduskunta. Then we have Arno from UpCloud, CEO, and then our CCO from Solita, Aleksi Issakainen. It was about 1 year ago when I received multiple messages from our sales that, hey, our customers are asking, is there any alternatives, viable alternatives to big hyperscalers, let's say. And yeah, I was listening to signals and figuring out the solution. In the beginning, during the Q1, I was kind of not worried too much about the situation, that this is just kind of passing through. But when we entered Q2, we saw that, hey, this is all the time enforcing, and especially in Solita, when we operate around Europe, we saw this in Denmark first. And then during the autumn, it started to resonate more here in Finland too, and we established a strategic partnership with UpCloud, and together here we're gonna tell you more about the digital sovereignty. All right, but hey, without further ado, let's welcome Atte Harjanne, Parliament of Finland, and stage is yours.
Oh, thank you. All right, thanks. Let's see if it works. Oh, thanks. All right, good morning, everyone, and thank you for the breakfast, for the hosts. And so yeah, I'm Atte Harjanne, Member of Parliament. In Finland, I represent the Green Party and the voters here in Helsinki. And my background education is that I'm a Master of Science and Technology, so diplomi-insinööri from Aalto University. And it's always nice to talk to a crowd that's smarter than than yourself and probably knows about the topic more than I do. But I want to give a kind of policymaker's perspective on the topic. In Parliament, I'm member of the Transport and Communications Committee, the Intelligence Oversight Committee, and also temporarily the Legal Committee. And then I also co-chair, or I'm now the vice chair of a network we established together with MP Timo Harakka called Technology and Society, which has the idea to be kind of informal network within the parliament, both the politicians and the officials discussing the development of technology and its impacts on society and on economy, and of course this is quite heavily related on that stuff as well. But and what we're trying to do is keep close connections with companies also involved in the business, and try to make sure that in the parliament we are kind of up to date on what's happening on the private sector side. So I was going to say a couple of words about how the world looks right now regarding this topic, then kind of my perspective on the digital dependency, and how I view the kind of pillars for digital resilience and sovereignty that's on the table here today. Now, what the world right now is very volatile, of course. So a couple of years ago, probably would have not guessed that we would have spent like a month discussing Greenland so much. Although I have background in climate change research and do understand the strategic importance and so on with the Arctic, but in the context of U.S. president making direct threats about claiming the whole territory as a U.S. state. Now, the latest news is, I guess, somewhat calming in a way that they found some kind of a deal perhaps to settle down for a while, but it's clear that it's volatile and the news tomorrow can be something very different again. And we were just yesterday joking with colleagues, we're traveling to NATO headquarters next week, that whether it's going to be there or there's going to be a big yard sale and the whole thing's closed down. But it seems like now NATO is going to be there still next week. So it's clear that it's a very volatile, very difficult time. Largely, of course, not only because of Mr. Trump and his administration, but of course that's added now to already a very tensioned geopolitical landscape is now even more kind of brittle or volatile thanks to Trump administration. Looking at kind of the global geopolitics, so to say, I think we're in an era of, or we kind of used to think that we're in an era of kind of geopolitical competition between blocs. And if you've read the book by the president of Finland, Mr. Alexander Stubb, he kind of looks at the world as three blocks, being the West, consisting of kind of the old West and its allies across the globe, so Europe, North America, Australia, Japan, stuff like that, and then global East would be Russia and China and their kind of auxiliaries, and then global South, which would be kind of the rest. And Mr. Stubb's argument is that the weight of the South is getting bigger, so they are going to be deciding a lot about the future. Now, I think that's a very good way of dividing kind of the world or looking at it around, but what we now of course see is that it's very questionable what the West would now be, especially with Trump's Board of Peace ideas and so on, so kind of building alliances with much more like authoritarian regimes across the globe. Looking at digital economy and geoeconomics, so I think one of the parts of the era is that economies and everything economic is now part of power politics, be it raw materials, value chains, digital dependencies. And looking from that, I think it's, well, as you know, I mean, the US has dominated for the couple of last decades on software, cloud services, stuff like this. China is the manufacturing powerhouse of the global economy, and then kind of Europe is trying to stay or build its competitiveness in this landscape. And as said, the kind of the economic power of the rest of the world is growing all the time. And then we have like specific cases, for example, Israel, for example, is in defense and security industries and technologies compared to its size, a very, very significant player. But a very tensioned, volatile era in which, of course, the role of digital technologies is increasing and kind of aligns with the whole idea of power, big power competition, where everything like be it economics, military power, diplomacy can be used as a means of coercion and use of power. So how does the dependency landscape look like from I would say my perspective? I first took a very personal view on this and started thinking of what are the kind of the digital tools of my everyday life as a politician. So I'm an MP, but I'm also a city councillor in Helsinki. I sit in the board of a big Helsinki-owned company, and then of course I'm a private citizen as well. And what do I use pretty much every day? So the office tools are Microsoft, Google are big, then Slack, of course, then all the kind of the quick messaging softwares there. So a lot of big American tech companies. Then I need to get elected, so I need to stay in touch with people. So I don't really have a choice whether I'm in social media or not. But so there we have the big, of course, the meta platforms, and then TikTok is big, and I'm not that big in there, but still like using a bit, and then some others. Then of course everything runs on some kind of a hardware as well. So I have an iPhone, actually two, and then the computer given by the Parliament to me is a Lenovo computer. And I'm not a big I'm not super I don't use AI that much actually in my everyday work, but when I do, then I have a ChatGPT and LeChat that I use. And I guess you can see that I'm not the kind of I'm a bit like aware on today's topic already, because you can see that I've switched to Quant in my as the general kind of search engine. I dropped X more than a year ago. I'm in Blue Sky now. And I do also try to use the French chat AI tools as well. So I try, but what it says that is that even if I would decide as a person that I want to somehow completely drop my dependencies to some be it US or China or whatever, it would be pretty hard. Just it's not as even if I'm a somewhat significant political figure, I'm reliant on so many other actors and so on the scale. But I think this goes to everyone basically working in economy. It's really hard to kind of cut your ties or decide on who on kind of which in hardware software originated in some country that you would only go for that. And of course, this is just the superficial part, the kind of the layer down there, the kind of the surface layer, and under that is all the big infrastructure, the cloud services, the hardware, the networks, all that stuff, and of course the picture isn't kind of prettier and almost the other way around. So the US three big services are in cloud. Cloud services really dominant. And then if we would start to go on the hardware side and the value chains there, then of course Asian countries, China would be a very, very significant as well. This is work by Professor Vili Lehdovirta, who's I think one of the really prominent speakers and thinkers of this. He happens to be in Finland here, but he's also I think globally quite or internationally quite recognized expert on the topic. But yeah, so it's not just the apps and so on, but of course the hardware side as well, and everything underneath. And you can see that also. I think this picture kind of shows the ongoing, in a way, global competition. This is also by Professor Lehdovirta's studies on US and Chinese cloud infrastructure and how it's situated, and I think this is something that we might be in an era that we might see even more kind of division between who's in whose camp in the future, but we'll see. And of course here it would be great to have Europe not being in a situation where we have to decide who to play with, but be a significant actor by ourselves. Well, this is pretty much what I already said in the beginning. So I think technological power is more and more economical power, and economic power is geopolitical power, and of course you see the lists of the most valuable companies in the world. There aren't that many European companies. I think for some time the Danish medicine Novo Nordisk was there last year for some time, but otherwise it's US tech companies that dominate. I think nowadays the biggest European company is the one that does luxury bags, and I think whether that's critical infrastructure or really provides geo-economic power is questionable. But so I think this is very telling in a way. Now, how to change the thing, or what should be done to change the situation? And I think I would first of all say that I don't believe like completely cutting ties to US or any direction actually, but rather make sure that we would have more weight in Europe, that we know that we are self-sufficient in a way, that we are the security of supply of our critical services work, and we can trust on that. But then at the same time that we build significance and role in a digital global economy. And I tried to figure it out as a kind of like three pillars. So we have the technological. We should have competence in hardware. We should have competence in software. We should have control of data. And then of course we need skills. We need people who know how to do this stuff. But this is not enough, or this won't happen without the two other pillars. And I think especially with the economic pillar, we need capital, we need investment in this stuff in order for it to exist. And we need markets for this stuff in order for that to exist. So we need markets for European players, and the European players need to be competitive in those markets as well. And I think here European markets are very important. I think this boils down to a bigger problem of European competence on being unable to really create single markets, be it digital or physical, but single markets as well. But it's really important to have capital markets in order for this stuff to kind of gain ground and exist in a more significant scale. And then, of course, political, societal, how to frame it. But I think it's really important that we decide that this is important, that we want to change the situation from what it is now. And here we, of course, I think we need awareness. That's been raising quite a lot, especially with I think key case being the Trump's sanctions on the International Criminal Court's judge. But we also need public support because this stuff is, it will in a short term cost some money or require actions to change the course. And it might be, of course, considered a bit of a nuance. It's easy to leave it if you don't kind of care. So I think we need kind of societal will to change the situation from what it is now. So what needs to be done, or what I would like to see happening, is first of all short-term contingency plans, and this is stuff that is of course happening already, but in a way make sure that we're not critically vulnerable to any dependency we have on any digital platform, software, hardware, anything. And that of course means that we can't perhaps provide the same level of service in a situation where we be cut out of some services, but at least we know what will happen and how we make sure that the critical processes and services run in any cases. And these should play together. I think in the interview by Helsingin Sanomat a couple of days ago, Mr. Lehdovirta said quite well that if every public actor makes its own contingency plans, they might not play together, for example, regarding capacity of computing or cloud stuff. So they need to be systemically trained and also make sure that they fit together. And then we need a longer term systematic de-risking and improving self-sufficiency. I think that boils down to creating the competencies in hardware, software, in the skills of people, and in the control of data. But that clearly takes time, and it does require the market to exist and the capital to be there. But I think a very clear tool that can be used for scaling and creating the demand as well is public procurement. So public actors are in a great role here, or they have a good position to procure solutions that are European and support the sovereignty. So I think that's something that we need. It probably needs some new regulations as well, but I think that's something that should be taken where the public sector needs to kind of acknowledge its responsibility. And I say that the European markets here should be used as a leverage, kind of also boils down or is combined to the procurement side, but it's really important to have a market which kind of weighs in sovereignty as a factor that we need to strive for as well. But I do think we also need global partnerships in a world which is more and more transactional, but where I think the Canadian Prime Minister pointed out as well that the middle powers there are a lot of countries and nations and people worried about these issues. So finding the friends to cooperate with in the world is important as well, and not just look at ourselves. And yeah, I think we need bold but balanced regulation. So the old story goes that the EU is really good at regulating stuff, and that kind of kills the innovation. And I think there's some truth to that, but I still think that we need to be kind of do smart regulation regarding, for example, control of data and so on. That helps in how would I say decentralizing the power in the market a bit and so on. But this is something that I definitely think that we would need to hear more of companies and actors in the sector that are not just the biggest companies in kind of finding ways to create balanced, smart regulation on European and national scale. But I do underline that I think this is a joint European challenge, even a global challenge to some extent. So I think that needs to be, or we here, if we look at from the Finnish perspective, we also need to make sure that we look at we don't look at from a too Finnish perspective, but we look at the role of Europe and European markets as well at the same time. So to conclude, as said, I mean, digital economy can be geopolitically weaponized. It's being geopolitically weaponized already. Not as much as it could be, but I don't want to be kind of building just on hope, but rather increased self-sufficiency and sovereignty. And I do think that deep dependencies, they threaten European democracy and security directly, or then indirectly, that we realize that we have less say in the world as it is. We have less say in our own matters, and I think that's a threat by itself. And I think the future of digital economy and democracy is being shaped right now and perhaps for a very long time. So I think it's the slower we are to react accordingly, the deeper we are in a hole where getting out of there might be trickier all the time. And however, I think a lot can be done, and we can do a lot to improve the situation in regards of technology, economy, and politics. And I would add in the end that it boils largely also down to trust. We had a good discussion there on a cup of coffee before, or on the breakfast. We're in a world now where you make like deals on paper, but it really goes down to whose word can you trust in the end, and that's been shaken. I think that's the fundamental tricky issue now. Even if you have companies saying that they will provide this and this in situation and this, then you really, everyone needs to go down and see what are the physical, actual, and political, economic dependencies behind that, and whose word can you trust in the end. And I think that's of course a horrible thing, because trust is the thing that moves world forward, but I think that's now what's being questioned is who can you trust, and the more we can rely on actors that we hopefully can trust, then that the better. But that's the tricky part now, and that of course is a call to cooperate with the friends we know we can trust as well. But yeah, so looking forward for any questions, discussions, and also the upcoming presentations. And once again, thank you very much for welcoming me here. And thank you. Yeah.
Any questions to Atte?
Yeah, what are the kind of concrete actions that you see happening in the city of Helsinki or at the parliament regarding this strengthening our sovereignty? Because I think the trend is actually a bit different, at least what it has been, what we've seen is more to the hyperscalers.
It is.
And also trusting, which is the word you used, their sovereign approach.
Yeah, it is. It's been more and more. I think their market power, of course, has been kind of increasing. In city of Helsinki, there's right now an interesting case where a colleague, council member Otto Kiiväk, has made this kind of initiative on looking at this, and it's now being processed within the city. And I think what's the right word? The digital committee subcommittee of Helsinki, I think, took a pretty smart kind of state or stance on that this is something that should be thoroughly looked at, and it might get something moving in Helsinki, I think. On national scale, I think we're still. I think that the discussion is only starting, and I hope this news and kind of points made have been kind of wake-up calls, but I to be honest, I don't think there's much concrete on the scale that's needed. Is not yet happening, but I think, as I said, I think I would go down to doing this stuff, and this is of course not something that needs to be that much publicly discussed in the end, but it should of course involve the private sector actors that are possible service providers, but that should be happening all the time, like looking through the dependencies and the vulnerabilities and trying to make sure that they are handled in a appropriate way. And then this part should be, I don't know, kind of written as a strategy that we strive for, and that should be in all of our EU advocacy, in our own regulatory work, a clear direction that we would take, and see whether the actions we take, whether the regulatory decisions we take, whether they take us there or whether they take us to the other direction as well. But that's true. I mean, it's at the moment money talks, and if sovereignty isn't kind of weighed in, then the actors really act according to law and the budget resources they have. And we've seen, for example, the election data going to the American cloud provider, and I think it was good that it kind of invoked a lot of criticism and talk. So I think things might be changing, but they really haven't changed a lot yet.
We'll dig a bit deeper into the topic in the last yeah. But what I found interesting was the first signals of the EU new legislation that's upcoming this year still, probably, that would have an angle on the sovereignty and the sort of the security.
Yeah, and that's of course with EU. I think what's a big question now is the ability to act accordingly and actually get through kind of legislation or regulation that works in this way. But I think well, the Danes at least are now clearly understand the thing, the French as well, but it's something that I think is very important to keep, even though now there's bad news and less bad news, and there's a lot of volatility and in a way a lot of I would say noise in the geopolitical arena and the news of the world. But I think it's clear that that we should keep in mind clearly that this is something that we should strategically play into this goal of improving the sovereignty and have that as a clear side. And I hope that's seen among European colleagues as well, and Finnish colleagues as well. But this is something that I try to also, when discussing with MPs from other countries, to kind of underline this is something that we really should be doing.
Thank you. Any other questions?
My name is Janne Ylö, I'm coming from Yle, and we just yesterday had a discussion on this geopolitics and the impact to technology strategy and purchasing and so on. And naturally we were thinking of directing stuff more towards Europe, but actually you mentioned this public procurement, and there actually we need some help here locally in Finland, because in a way we are a bit blue-eyed on this thinking and this kind of, how to say, our framework is prohibiting us doing the right thing, and maybe you can help in this.
Yeah. That's, I guess that's my work, and that's action point. That's true, and that's something that I try to say that it is there that we do need kind of again balanced regulation, but we do need I think looking at regulation is tricky, but it's something that's not an excuse to not do it, but it's clear, and I think the responsibility largely lies on the political side, because this is something that cannot be outsourced to say that companies take care of this or private citizens take care of this, because it's so systematic and it boils down to stuff like this. And as a society, I think it should be understood that resilience tends to cost money, because you have resilience and efficiency and you have to make a trade-off, and resilience then on short term costs something, I think on long term it's probably it saves money, but that should be understood as a value decisions that if we want resiliency, we need to invest in that.
And companies are understanding the new attack vector.
Yeah.
So obviously, I wouldn't blame the public sector procurement for being blue-eyed. Who would have known a month ago what we will be seeing? So the tables turn so quickly. It's like we've been living in a mashup of Game of Thrones and House of Cards and dodgeball. so that's the situation. But what we're already seeing with companies that they understand this attack vector and they understand the impact it could have on their business. So the cost side is something that's clearly sort of changing as a rule of decision making. So yeah.
It's actually kind of, if you compare this situation with the Russian attack into Ukraine, Finland, of course, like, well, we have a history and we know what the reality is, but like you can see that European countries have been for the last 4 years kind of like dragging their heels, especially the guys who are on the other side of Europe who don't really have a border or any close connections to Ukraine or the eastern part of Europe. But here, this is kind of like everybody's problem,
yeah.
Because whether you're in Spain or whether you're in Finland or Belgium or whatever, if the orange toddler decides to cut the ties, then everybody has a problem here.
And interestingly, the US decided to make a blackout happen in Venezuela, and they created a blackout for 7 members of the International Court, but they did not create a blackout for Russia. So I think that's
Yeah, that definitely. So I think with the Russia-Ukraine situation, but also kind of also that the more systematic your dependency is, the harder it is. Because I mean, for us, we didn't rely on Russian gas that much. But of course, looking at German economy, for example, it really took time, and it's much more straightforward issue than what we're talking about now here. So it's kind of underlines that it's something that's better to do before before the shit hits the fan, so to say.
Atte, one question you as a member of the parliament, and by the way, then from UpCloud leading up product development over there. One of the things that looking at Europe at large is yes, we have been spoon-fed for the past 15 years a solutions coming out of state. Few things over here. What is your kind of view on should we govern our own digital destiny at some point? You mentioned that there are costs associated, of course, with every change there is a risk associated. But down the line, how can we be comfortable being in a total leash on overseas solutions? And furthermore, if we look at the investment markets in Europe, I don't think it's a very intellectual position to say that we are comfortable investing more and more and trying to come up with solutions that are on par with the ones that coming from, let's say, States and China, if we are so comfortably shocking hundreds of thousands of euros and dollars on a yearly basis to feed those companies without seeing the need to actually invest into our own solutions for them to grow and prosper. Just
I agree. I mean, the beautiful idea of European Union's large single market is great, but what we kind of lacked is that we largely made it to a playground for global actors to act on, and we forgot that their own competence to kind of provide the solutions on that, and figures like this should be kind of alarming in a way that we're doing something that we need to improve and change direction to some extent. That even if the EU wants to be, if we want to be a regulator that has to say on how the world looks like in the future, without economic power, we can't do that. No one cares about our views anymore. So that kind of underlines the point of taking more into our own hands. But again, tricky issue, and another lecture could be the internal tensions within the EU on how to make sure that these things are not turned around on policies that are actually tailored for the French or Italians or someone. So we actually need to play together here.
But after one question regarding like in Eduskunta, in the parliament at the moment, you have your intended, but still, do you engage in any of these discussions with your colleagues over there across different parties? Like, do you see, is there any growing concern? You said that you are yourself dependent on this solution as policymaker. I think it's a horrible situation, kind of the things that would be, blacked out of my basic toolkit. So, but do you have any guidance just on a general notion? Don't need to go into detail.
I think it's growing, and for example, in the network, we in the Technology Society, I think this is something we'll touch upon more. We already had a session on this last year, but this is probably something we're going to dive deep into. But I think that now the Parliament is in recess, so it's in a couple of weeks that we're going to meet up again. But I think the atmosphere has changed this January quite a lot, and I think a lot of colleagues are they have their eyes opened more, and what I've been seeing in different occasions, colleagues, I think this is something that's going to be on the table, and it should be. And I think we're now thinking also on how to kind of what would be the parliamentary way of kind of making sure that this is discussed as a big topic instead of like a small connotation every now and then. And by the way, this is a problem, but rather have a more strategic view. But I think a lot of eyes have opened in the recent couple of weeks.
We had one in the back, one question, and then we can continue. I guess.
I think part of it was covered by the person there, but I was thinking, with this AI all around the world now. So, what's the government's view in terms of the digital identity of the public and data around, and then obviously the AI, to safeguard in the long run, and most of the infrastructure is, U.S. companies are owning in Europe, as you said multiple times.
Yeah.
So, small countries in the past, like South Korea and so on, they started with nothing, right? And then they built on that, and then they basically, it's all started from the governments, like keeping the whole country as a rich family. I mean, I'm trying to ask that, what's the government's outlook? Because the current government is mostly focusing on squeezing money from the people's pocket, those who are kind of earning, and then obviously not looking for the futuristic view that they can attract more investment to Finland and more attraction to foreign talent and all of that. So this is very kind of conservative the way it's going on now actually. So what's the development around those areas?
I think we're in a way lacking a good outlook. In a way, we were trying to get a lot of foreign investment in Finland, but now I think we're more opening our eyes of whose investment is, what ties does it come with, and then there's a broad consensus that we want to be a high-tech nation with global skill and talent here, but I don't think the policies often which are now in place actually play into that goal. And then I think we also in Finland we should have we should talk more about from the European perspective still. I think that we are, especially after COVID, I think we're still mentally too long distance from Brussels or Berlin or Paris. So that's still lacking, I think, a bit here, but it's a problem across the Europe.
Yeah, but we talk all the time about EU and EU umbrella and then covered by it and all the time. But the problem is EU, like they enforce all the regulations and compliances all the time.
Yeah.
And the US company comes without all of that, and then grab the market, and then they make the money.
And I think EU's problem is that it often the Commission mixes like means and ends. So you have good ends and take bad means to get there, and you don't get to the ends, and that's consistently the problem. And I hope that we need to get over that, but that's the challenge. Regarding, for the example, data sovereignty, a lot of good ideas on how to improve, but then in practice, looking at what's happening in the markets, that really hasn't worked that way. So I think that's something that's not going to be fixed quickly, but at least the mentality should be updated. But I guess I'm stealing someone else's time already.
No, we are on schedule, so thank you, Atte.
Thank you.
Next, Arno from UpCloud.
So how would I do that?
Yes.
Just take that out. Yeah, maybe it's easier.
Maybe I can put it there, so it's magnetic. All right.
How would I do this here?
And the sticker is there downwards. Yeah. It's
Okay. Oh, it's No. Huh? No.
The other way.
Okay, the other way.
Yeah.
All right, perfect. Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Atte, for that great presentation. A lot of stuff resonated with me quite heavily, especially the last sentence. A lot can be done. So, indeed, a lot can be done. It also can be done also from UpCloud perspective to be on that list you showed. That actually hurt me, very much that we are not on there. I can tell you, we actually, we are much bigger than the last one and on that list. So that's, of course, also maybe a challenge for us. Yeah, so thanks for having me here. And I'm Arno. I'm the CEO of UpCloud. Obviously, I'm not Finnish, so I'm German. I live in Hamburg, and I consider myself half a Nordic person because basically 150 years ago, Hamburg was actually the southern border of the Danish territory. So I'm kind of consider myself, very acquainted with the culture here. So yeah, oops. So today is actually not about politics. It's about a business decision. So today, I think it's important why European sovereignty matters and why is that important for all of us. So I want to stay very practical and basically start with the context and basically then where is the data located and basically how can we work to strengthen our business footprint here as Europeans. So it's how is that? Okay. Here. Okay. So obviously, I mean, the whole thing isn't about fear. It's about basically making the right decisions. And of course, I mean, I don't want to repeat everything what you said. Everything, is reading the news. So I think what's probably, currently with the developments, yesterday, probably most important thing on that list is probably the unpredictability. Meaning, I mean, who have thought? I mean, you just said it, Aleksi. I mean, one month ago, what would happen in January? So there's a lot of things going on, and basically, it's not only kind of causing fear and kind of making sure that we make a decision based on certain political circumstances, but it's about business and it's about reality management. So data sovereignty is mainstream now. So basically, that's a lot of questions which are basically here on that list is on everyone's desk in every company. So it's not necessarily a political or external factor decision. It's a IT and business decision. So I think that's really important to realize from our perspective. And also just maybe one point on that. I mean, we touched that point. Atte touched that, and I think also was one of the questions as well. I think just to be very clear on this, and I think a hyperscaler sovereign cloud is named sovereign, but actually the reality is not sovereign. And the interesting thing is that basically, obviously, I mean, you all know probably the regulation and the legislation on that. So the key factor here is that any company who has not a headquarter in Europe basically falls in has headquarter in US falls under the US Cloud Act. And that is something which, of course, the big hyperscalers, they can try to dance around the issue and call themselves European. Only Europeans are actually on the data centers. Only Europeans are working in that data center. Only Europeans can basically make decisions on the ground. That doesn't matter at all. And what's actually really kind of bugging me in the whole discussion is that actually, for instance, AWS, it's just like a current example, is communicating half-true statements. So, so basically, what they state in a very official document, and that's really the truth. I mean, I'm going to read it to you. So the Cloud Act applies to any cloud provider that operates in the United States or has legal presence there, regardless of where their headquarter is located. And that's truly 100% wrong. So basically, that would mean that any European company who has basically activities in the US, like UpCloud, we would actually fall under US Cloud Act, and that's definitely not true. That's completely wrong information. So I think that's maybe just one example how the whole thing is kind of steered in a way, and how the whole discussion is very often going in a wrong direction. So UpCloud, I mean, as I said, I mean, we want to work to be on that list and to move our way up. Obviously, UpCloud is Helsinki-based, truly European, founded 2011. The founder URL is here as well, our CTO. So 150 people, growing strongly, 10,000 clients. I can of course read all that, but I think that's the most important thing is that we are very cost efficient in everything what we do, and this is because we operate very smart and very very based on various factors, but not by cutting some corners. So, and I think if you think about that, basically what our offering is, and our offering is basically true cloud native and infrastructure as a service, compute, storage, networking, GPU, also soon other services like inference, platform as a service, all that stuff you can see here, Kubernetes, object storage, and also the tools you see here like Terraform. That actually means for you very operationally, you don't have to relearn cloud business to basically move your workloads to UpCloud. So that's also, of course, very, very important for many clients, and I guess many of you. So these are actually quite interesting topics. And if you just think about further about data localization as the next topic, and localization doesn't necessarily mean that basically we are as close as 200 meters away from here. So basically we are very local in Finland, headquarters right in downtown Finland, and that's actually also right on downtown Helsinki. And that means, of course, if something really goes south, you can just knock on our door and you have someone to talk to, and not maybe a call center in Ireland or Spain or Greece, where you don't reach someone and don't get an answer. So that's of course a big advantage. But actually in that sense, I actually didn't mean, where the office is, the proximity, but actually where the data centers are. And that's for us, especially a very big competitive advantage. Obviously we have 15 data centers around the world and 9 in Europe. So that basically, especially, Atte also mentioned that, for the contingency plans, especially for the public sector, a very important argument to basically do business. And again, the third point, completely free from US jurisdiction whatsoever. So, but even that's not where we end, because we think that proximity is super important. We're now even closer because we opened up 2 more data centers in Denmark in December, and also in Norway this month, in Stavanger, which is like a former NATO facility, quite just by the way. So it's, I think it's important to realize that, proximity, localization of data is really, really important for many companies, and we think that this is a competitive advantage we can basically bring to the table. And to my knowledge, we are the only infrastructure provider who has basically a pan-Nordic coverage with all the Nordic countries, mainland, except Iceland. So we can basically fulfill all the needs of every company in those countries very, very easily. And yeah, if we look at that, obviously, basically being active in the market, that can't be done necessarily completely alone. So we are actually working, very strongly with partnerships. That's the reason why we're also here with Solita, and we value the partnership very much. Basically, if you look at the, how the partnership is developed. No vendor can do that alone. So we have on the left side the European cloud infrastructure with our proprietary built cloud platform, with the infrastructure owned by us and truly European. On the other hand, the experts with Solita about digital transformation and the deep expertise in strategic advisory, cloud migration, and transformation. And I think if we, kind of combine those 2 assets together, we are able to basically enable businesses to build really a truly digital future that is secure, compliant, and of course truly their own. So I think that's a very important point. So we are super happy that we are able to be here, and basically just to kind of put that maybe in a nice pyramid. At least I think it's nice. If you see on the ground, basically the infrastructure, of UpCloud, with the stuff we had just mentioned, the infrastructure as a service and platform as a service, with all the services and products, and basically on top the knowledge of Solita in consulting and transition and migration, and basically being close to the clients, and together that's basically to the benefit of the clients. We are offering that, and with a real outcome, basically with the value added. Yeah, so I think, of course, maybe just one example I would love to share. I mean, this is a client of us, and I really, especially like the picture. So I would love to share that. Obviously, bye AWS and Salesforce, hello UpCloud. That really, of course, resonated very well with me and with us. But I think it's important. Maybe the key message, if you read the LinkedIn post, is actually it's not about necessarily ideology. So that's what I meant in the beginning. So it's not about we are better because we are Europeans and we hate the Americans, we don't want to do business. It's about basically business. It's about risk aversion. It's about basically diversification. It's about data security. And I think that's the main point in all the discussion. And I think, to be really honest, if you allow me to add a personal note, I think sometimes that's a little bit stressed too much. And just, a company goes out in the world, say, hey, we're European, so please buy from us. That's not enough. And that also cannot be the only position in the market. So you have to really back that up with facts and with, performance and with products who actually make sense. So I think that's basically the reason why we are super happy with, with the partnership. So basically, of course, how would that, work for you? Of course, basically everything starts with evaluating the risk and assessing the current situation, the regulatory stuff, the geopolitical things, and also the operational risk for you. Then of course there will be developed a plan with a clear sovereign cloud strategy. So what is the right product? What is the right strategy for the needs you actually have? And then, of course, build a resilience and basically optimize the infrastructure in the right way. And I mean, we are super excited to drive Europe's digital infrastructure together with Solita, and hopefully I kind of made up some time. Atte basically kind of took a little bit longer to not screw up the whole agenda. So basically it's not about websites, it's not about technology, it's about people. So if you want to hear more, we have Michael here, and Kimmo, of course. Thank you for organizing all that. So if there are any questions, of course, direct them directly to us. Thank you.
Right, thank you. So now we have again time. Shoot, Arno, any questions?
I do have one.
Yeah.
I was writing while you were speaking because it was interesting. As a cloud agency owner myself here in Helsinki, I do understand the technical side, and I am all in favor for European UpCloud, for European cloud, and European providers for everything, for the sovereignty reasons. But do you feel, do the users, the end users care? Meaning not the end users of UpCloud, but the end users of the platform that then runs on UpCloud or AWS or Azure. Because they either don't know because they're not technical, they don't care because a lot of users don't care about the technology behind it, or if they care, they don't know where to check, how to check, like what to check. So what do you feel is the incentive for a company that would like to migrate, but they have to spend like 100,000, 500,000 euros to migrate to another platform where it works? It's not illegal to use AWS or Azure because it does conflict with the Cloud Act, but I don't know if legally you can say like, I use it, everybody uses it. We work, for example, with Lufthansa, and they're big users of Azure. They have everything on Microsoft. And I don't see them switching for any other reason of we want to do it technically because we care about Europe and we care about our users' data. but the person buying the airplane ticket or buying cargo doesn't really care that much or doesn't know to care.
Mm-hmm.
So like, what's your take on that?
Okay, there were a couple of questions, so I try to remember them all. So maybe to start with the hyperscalers, what you just mentioned with Azure and Microsoft and AWS. So first of all, I mean, the hyperscalers, they're doing good stuff. You know, so I mean, they actually have products, they work, and you know, it's reliable in a way, and so there's nothing really to say, you know, per se against, you know, those offerings. However, I think the idea of sovereignty is a different one that European companies have, and I think Europeans should have. If, and that's the big if data security is important to you. So if you don't care about your security and you don't care about the data, where it's hosted and what's happening with the data, if you don't care whether election data will be, you know, somewhere and that the European Commission is being cut off by, you know, Microsoft, I mean, if you don't care, fine, you know, so I mean, we cannot force someone. So I'm actually also completely against in forcing people and trying to, you know, completely, you know, intentionally destroy that product by regulation. I think we have to work as Europeans with a competitive offering, which is more attractive, which is more performant, which basically has a higher security level and has smarter products, and basically the whole thing is secure. So I think that's the whole point. So I think, of course, there will be, you know, many services, and of course I have these discussions as well, you know, with some clients. They say, well, I mean, why should I care? Why should I, you know, use you? I mean, I don't care about the data. Well, then maybe you're not the right client for us, you know. So, and I think that's maybe the quick answer to that. And I think, of course, I mean, we are convinced that the path we are moving with UpCloud, with, you know, being European and, you know, really focusing on the data security is the right one. But if someone doesn't want that, that's also fine. There are also reasons, you know, for using a hyperscaler, of course. Yeah.
Therefore, we need the legislation to kind of bring this up. But hey, Aleksi, you have.
Yeah, I was just about to say that caring starts with understanding.
Yeah.
And if we think for a moment that we wouldn't have access to buying those airline tickets or to our own private photos, yeah, or to our email or Amazon services, if just for a brief moment we think that there would be even a small chance of that happening to us, to our person, think about your life. I think that's a reality to people somewhere now. So I think that's the moment of clarity.
Yeah, if I can just add continuation. Yes, but the problem that we face sometimes, for example, when proposing a platform to use, is also, or if we have to propose a migration, is also that their users don't know that they have to care. So for them, it's like it's an expense. We slow down delivery. So I agree with everything you said, because I also share both of your arguments.
Yeah.
But sometimes it's a tough sell when someone says, I know AWS, I can go on LinkedIn, put an ad, I find like 100 candidates from everywhere that know AWS. And our users don't really know that they have.
No, completely. I mean, I can completely understand your point, but I think the main issue, I think, as you know, as also Aleksi said, and then I finish, is I think also commercially it has to make sense. And also what I said, you know, that actually we see that every day. Yeah. I mean, we are, you know, 30 to 50% cheaper than comparable offerings at some point. Of course, some products we are not, but you know, that's just the way the world works. So that's again. So I think only being European doesn't, you know, basically is something which is probably helping you to recommend a certain cloud infrastructure solution, but I think we also have to provide a product which basically makes it easier for you in terms of commercials, in terms of security, in terms of performance, to bring that to your client.
And Aleksi will touch the topic in a while, and it comes also to business continuity. But questions?
Yeah, just a quick comment on that. I would say if there would be a general poll on general public now, I'm 100% sure that the large majority of Finns would agree on statement that we need to reduce our digital dependence in the US. But as a consumer, you're completely powerless. How can you actually start making those choices? If you're tech savvy, you can do something, but then when you start to do like everyday stuff. So I think that's the dynamics we need to create. It takes regulation, awareness, all that stuff. But then I'm optimistic that when the ball gets rolling, it's easier than we think.
Unlike oil and precious minerals that cannot be moved to this country, we have timber, but unlike those, these can actually be moved.
There was one question in the back.
Not necessarily a question, but to expand on the previous topic and take a positive spin on it. So my name is Mika. I work at UpCloud. I used to lead the sales there, and now I work with strategic partners on the product side. So specifically, what I want to raise my hand here is take a positive spin from our western neighbor. So Sweden is quite well in many areas of data privacy. They're quite well regulated and are concerned about this sort of stuff. And the positive spin here is that we're seeing a lot of our customers that are doing good business on the fact that they make these data privacy decisions for their end customers. And one such company that we work with and that has turned this to a competitive advantage on their own business is Haley HR. And as many people know, HR data and personal data is very, very regulated across Europe, very much so in Sweden. And the fact that they choose to work with the European provider has become a competitive advantage for them. And they're able to deliver their services directly from Europe with a European provider, which their end customers then in turn do appreciate. And I think as Arno elaborated as well, not everyone cares equally about the topic, but some industries and some companies care a lot about it.
Yeah. Then, please.
Jussi Issakainen from Telia. So from an UpCloud perspective, what are your ambitions on making the journey to be more digital revolutionary for our customers, to make it much easier? And the easiness is actually the reason we very often go to the hyperscalers. Obviously, we don't need to have the parity, but what are the kind of ambitions? You are now kind of being showing you're setting data centers in different countries to have the data location, but on top of that, to build and deploy and run applications, it's not just about the infrastructure or the platform services. There are also things a little bit higher up in the chain, where we store our source code, how do we deploy it, where we keep our secrets, how are you helping us as a customer to make that easier for us to be really sovereign?
Yeah. So I think maybe just and also to be mindful of the time. I mean, maybe we can also clarify that after the session, we maybe with the product people from us. But I mean, maybe a general answer from my side is, of course, I mean, our roadmap is full and big, and of course, I mean, of course. I mean, we're not. Again, as I said, I think the biggest mistake European companies can do right now is just saying, hey, we are European. Buy from us, So I mean, it's not that. So we have to really work hard on making it easy to use and make it commercially. For instance, no regress fees, that kind of stuff. Really make it attractive for everyone to use our services. And of course, it also includes easy of use, and of course includes also products we don't have now, and we see as they, we should offer them in the future. So yeah.
All right. Hey.
Perfect.
Thank you, Arno.
Yeah, you're welcome. Oh yeah.
Now, next, Aleksi from Solita will then deep dive more into the practicalities regarding the journey.
This is unintuitive.
Yes.
So, hey, again, once more, a huge thank you for taking the time and joining us today. I feel that this couldn't be a more timely topic. And maybe a small answer to your question there. I feel that we, Solita, are also sort of responsible for making the transition both sort of viable in terms of business and good for the future. So I'm Aleksi Issakainen. I'm responsible for our basically our customers and commercials across our 9 countries. And while I think Atte here and Arno elegantly gave you the why and what on this topic, I'm trying to dig a bit deeper into the how and when. So that's what I try to relate to you. And I think this is a brilliantly interesting topic at the time, and especially why this is so important for us and hopefully to you as well, is that we, as in Solita, have been working for 30 years this year around our customers' business critical infrastructure, around the most regulated environments. And I could argue that if it weren't for our solutions, or if they would have a glitch now, the trains wouldn't run. Number of our industries would have significant trouble in performing, and I think that's in this kind of time and age, it's a huge responsibility on us. And we tend to say that we do our best to guide our customers. So while we build things, while we also are there for the strategy, we want to guide our customers. And we've been doing it since the inception of basically internet and the first business applications, then the cloudification, and now this, and obviously AI. And I do not want to make this a binary, and that's I'll give you a bit of sort of more understanding on why. So this is us. We're today 9 countries, hopefully maybe this year 10. We are 2,300 specialists working on data, AI, cloud, software engineering, design and strategy. And what we're really, really proud of is the partnerships that we have, and I think UpCloud is one of the latest on that one. And really, I feel that this has been so much more than just when the companies say that they partner. I think this has been way deeper. So I really am in gratitude for you guys. So 3 things, a bit of definitions on the 4 layers of sovereignty. Hopefully I'm not sort of repeating the things that you've learned today. Addressing the benefits versus risk of this whole move, and then some recommendations. I'm really hoping that you leave from this presentation and this event with some actionable things that you can already take to your organizations. What is really important to understand that sovereignty is not a technology choice. It's not about only the applications or the platforms that you use. It's really an operating system decision. What it means is it's about how you run and govern and control your technology, your business. So it's a different paradigm altogether, and it needs to stem from the business decisions, just as Arno said. So one factor of that is the security, is the sovereignty, is the cost, is your capability of maintaining your business USPs. So we've really discussed the topic of sovereignty, but just so that we all have the same vocabulary and we understand the topic equally, sovereign cloud, which is the focus of today, obviously it's just a subset of the total idea of sovereignty, but that is mainly the idea that how do we make sure that the most business critical areas of our operation are protected from foreign government influence and access. That's the vector here, and those who read Helsingin Sanomat, the biggest newspaper we have, there was a good article stating that out of 100 top digital platforms in use in Finland, 86 are from the US. So we've been spilling the oil to their direction for years. And as a side note on this, I think the barrier of entry to build the sovereignty, even on a software level, is lower now than it has ever been. And just as a teaser, this spring we will be coming up, we will be publicizing from Solita this next generation agentic accelerator, which has the potential to completely change the software engineering paradigm. And that just tells about the sort of the speed of change that we have now. So what was unthinkable a few years ago, could you do your own browsers? Could you do your own productivity software? Could you do the kind of modularity that would sort of untangle you from the sort of the big players? It was unthinkable, but it's no more unthinkable. Again, I'm going backwards. So we all know why it's important, so I'm not going into that more in depth. Out of 137 public digital services in Finland, 64 run on American cloud platforms. And I'm not saying that is bad. Let's not fall into the trap of thinking that this is a binary thing, because there is so much more underneath the hood that we need to address. And what we need to address is the 4 layers of sovereignty. So we need to understand our data, where it is stored, where it is processed, how is it encrypted and processed. We need to understand the whole of our operation. Who runs cloud, who runs our operation, where is it done, under what kind of transparency. Obviously, we need to have an understanding on our technology landscape. Where is the control of that? How can we be sure that there are no kill switches, or how can we be really certain that we have access to the important parts of it? And finally, obviously, it's about the legal and the sort of the regulation on top of everything. And this is what we've been discussing here today. But it's good to understand that the sovereignty has all of these dimensions, and they should all be given a weight within your business or your organization, and they should all be addressed separately and together. So while we must consider all this, I don't think we can decouple ourselves, or even that we should decouple ourselves from all of the other systems. There are no binary choices to be made. And I think this is sort of the sign of the times, that to systemic complex issues we try to find simple binary solutions. And this just isn't the case. So we're not proposing here today that everyone completely decouples themselves and gets the German-based productivity tools and moves everything to on-prem and UpCloud and tries to sort of build their own bunker. That's not the thing. And that shouldn't be the thinking. What we're trying to say today and show that it has sort of proof power is that there are benefits, there are risks. And when we look at our business on a more granular level, we start to understand that there is definitely the place for hyperscalers with the most advanced portfolio of features. There is definitely the place to think about your data and the data sovereignty and accessibility and recoverability and all those things. And this needs to be sort of looked more carefully at. And what we are now doing, for example, at Solita, is that we're coming to certain organizations, giving them support on how to assess. So how to go about assessing your different services, their criticality in these different angles or dimensions, and then what would it mean in different scenarios that you still have a viable functioning organization or a business. And where I am very happy to see sort of good progress is especially with UpCloud's sort of capability of coming for the really critical things. For example, for us, it's a really big thing that our customers have access to Snowflake and Databricks also in the future. So we're seeing good progress in that, and that's a big deal for many of our customers. Similarly, obviously, the sort of the basics, having the virtual machines and all that. So this is important, and this is the sort of the level of granularity that we need in order to make informed decisions on where we should be heading. So I think this is something that hopefully we can, and I think we can share the presentation so you can dig deeper. And like I said, there are no binary choices to be made. So when we look at the different considerations, we should look at the workloads. We should also look at the applications. We need to look at their business criticality, the data criticality, sort of the probability and impact matrix as well. And then we start to give them the weighting. And through this kind of analysis, we can come up to very informed conclusions based on the different scenarios that we have. It's a very different thing to do this for the Finnish railways than to the bag manufacturer, at least on a sort of the societal scale. But then when we discuss with the luxury goods manufacturer, for them, it could be a matter of life and death in terms of the business, obviously. So while I think the key driver has been the minimizing cost, maximizing scaling for the hyperscalers, that still is there in many scenarios. We see it still. But what is interesting is that for reducing risk, you need to have the resilience, security, sovereignty kind of topics. And there we start to differ a lot. Also, if we look at the cost, I think we can all agree that there are cases where even that turns green for example, UpCloud. So I think this is the thing. This is not really that heavy exercise, or it doesn't have to be that heavy exercise. But I think this kind of thing is very beneficial for any organization. I was actually really quick. That's I usually am. So first of all, the recommended actions for everyone is that, like I said, believing starts with understanding. And that's why the geopolitical risk as an enterprise risk category or potential attack vector should always be included into the overall 360 risk assessment. Then it's about making sure that you understand the workloads, understand your applications, understand their business criticality, data criticality, using some modeling. Having a first mitigation strategy in place sounds really grand. Mitigation plan in place. And always having the governance model for the future workloads in place. And then it's a matter of, okay, how do we address the whole thing in the future? How do we, for example, instead of having the strategy that many companies have had for the last decade is everything to cloud, and it's just simple as that. How do we make it more granular, have a hybrid cloud strategy for our company, understand what it truly means, what are the pitfalls, what are the sort of the upsides? I would really worry about the data recovery. We're seeing so many things happening there. Going for the required risk mitigations, and obviously having a active monitoring of the landscape. And I think this is where, for example, companies like us come into play. We are building these scenarios, we're building this idea of, okay, how does it look now? What has changed? Where should we be looking into? And I would also urge everyone to also think about the unthinkable. So when you do scenario play, you should always have that sort of that extreme scenario in place as well. You should understand that what if we would have seen Trump first say that we'll get the 25% toll on everything, and then that wouldn't have worked. We would have pushed the lever from the EU, and the next would have been, okay, let's tease them a bit more, let's start shutting some services. And while I'm saying that is absolutely not a probable, it's a low probability, high impact future. But if we're not also looking into that scenario, we're missing some points. It's not about making sure, again, that we dig ourselves into the bunker. It's making sure that the heart still pumps. So I think there what we have is really interesting. Okay, what would it look like if we have the real infrastructure decentralization? What is the data that where we are looking for efficiency? Where is the data and the workload that we're looking for security? What does it mean that we would have, for example, a dual working system in terms of our applications? At Solita, we ran for years with both Google and Microsoft, and it was a cost decision. It wasn't only a cost; it was also an architecture decision that we switched off from Google. But we know that it can be done, so there are alternatives. And I couldn't resist the temptation of also putting the AI capability. So fortunately, we have in many countries in Europe really developed AI capabilities. So we have the Mistral, it's not number one, but we have that know-how around Europe. So this is what I would urge everyone to do. And if you think about the weighting, this is more to sort of to foolproof the strategy. And these are the things that I would start instantly. I probably missed a lot of things into this in-depth dive, but this is what I wanted to share today. Thank you.
Thank you. Don't worry, Aleksi, you didn't miss too much. So it's,
good to know.
it was
Yeah.
good. Hey, any questions?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you for an excellent presentation. I think foolproofing is literally a really good word in geopolitics. And the CEO guidelines would directly apply to Prime Minister's office as well. But the question is the kind of standardization, or are there like standards or certificates or stuff like that that kind of would work in this context? Either the ones that look risk management in general or specifically to this issue, because I think that would be something that's needed for the financial institutions and investors to say, okay, this company has kind of foolproofed itself, and this not, and so on, or some measure for companies to look whether they are in which maturity they are in a process like this. Does anything like this exist? I think that would be, I guess, good thing for the market, and even a bit of a guideline for public procurement as well.
Yeah, that's a great question, because it's no secret that we work with the defense and security currently. So that's also a part of the critical infrastructure that we are addressing, and to do that, we've had to go through the strict test of the ISOs and all the standardization. And I would argue that even that will not address this. Obviously, the industries have their own methods and they have their own risk management systems and regulations. But to have that, I think, would be interesting. Obviously, there is a downside, because when you go to the granularity of industries, they are so different. The attack vectors are so different, and their risks are so different, and their business logics are so different, that having that kind of sort of wider regulation could actually again prove to be sort of hard. But as a topic and as something to be addressed as one dimension on these, I think it's interesting.
Yeah, for example, what Aleksi, you mentioned previously, that the EU is considering for the price, for the quality, the third aspect would address the sovereignty example and the risks. So there's probably something made attached to those certifications too. But hey, any other questions to Aleksi?
Well, I have one. Given that you are operating in the European scale, I guess you are having European customers as well. Is it enough for them to have the European cloud, or do they prefer to have a German cloud provider or a French?
It varies a lot. So certain industries are even by sort of regulation need to have everything in country. And also it even depends on the data domain. So some data needs to be kept in the country by regulation. So it's a very different thing. But for now it looks like the sort of the EU seems to be the golden standard in many ways.
Because I have a feeling that there might be this situation where we get into this fragmented market where every country has their own cloud provider, and then
and that would be sad,
yeah.
really, because if we think about the one lever that we have, is that I think it was brilliant that the Canadian Prime Minister, if you've seen his speech, it was completely to the point, and he said that we can build, or we've already in a way built a trade union of 1.5 billion people, and to be completely capable of competing with the blocks that are now forming, we need that. So I think the absolute caveat of the EU is the fact that it's not one. Yeah.
There was one quick question here. Right now, at the top of many corporations' bullet points is savings by AI that actually knit them harder to AWS, Google, and so on. And then that's kind of in conflict with what we've been talking about right now. And if you assume they are to stick to those principles, what options are there right now for companies to deliver savings on AI, but try to take this into account?
Yeah. I was just discussing this topic with the CIO of a Finnish company, and the only thing I found together with him was that we would, because we have this, we've created an LLM platform at Solita called Function AI that can be completely isolated. So you can use it in the completely on-prem and what is interesting is, can I say it? We're about to bring that as a deployable option to UpCloud. So then you will have an isolated LLM platform working on European cloud. And on top of that, then this CIO concluded that, okay, and then we just need to accept the fact that we can only work with Mistral. So that was the thing for them, because they have the strictest environment. Yeah. But we are still there. There's a lot that needs to be done.
All right. Question. Any other questions?
I mean, sometimes I was working with Volvo cars last 2 and 3 years roughly, and they use multiple clouds. I was building cloud strategy for them, the enterprise cloud strategy. And they use almost every region their flavor of cloud choices. If you go to US, it has certain preference. In European, there are of course centrally controlled clouds and so on. But the majority of the compute is consumed in the data centers, where actually the locally where the car is made. And they are largely disconnected systems, because every factory is independent and so on. And I think in those situations, sometimes the dependencies of technology occurs in a way that, for example, an ARM-based processor, which is, I mean, AWS provided it 10 years ago, while Azure, I think 2 years ago, they have brought up here. I think those kind of technology advancement and requirement of such large customers who build, really global cars and these kind of manufacturing plants, you might not have available those into, for example, I don't know about UpCloud, for example, but just kind of guessing, you might not have those technology advancements availability in the smaller cloud providers than the hyperscalers. And then largely, if you even go for these, obviously I understand the data sovereignty and all of that, but even if you think, okay, optimizing the cost, optimizing the governance, keeping things localized and so on, but then you are still stuck with some of the legacy stuff. And then you are eventually tied up with adding another cloud to your landscape, and then, still keeping the old one. And that becomes a problem for large decision makers, that which to choose and what to keep and so on.
Yes.
And, so I know there's no right answer to that. So, but obviously, keeping up with this pace is good choice what you just discussed today, providing a separate tenant for the AI capabilities on a European cloud and a European technology. Yeah, I think that's a good approach.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but yeah, I think good work you guys are doing. So thank you for inviting us, and really nice session.
Cheers. And just to complement that, I think what is interesting, what we're seeing with the whole Gen AI thing is that one thing that it's hyperscaling with our customers is the complexity of their IT environment. So point-to-point integrations and one use case per everything, and it's getting really silly. So I would argue that now it's the time to do whatever we can to build a structured approach also to the Gen AI and AI agents and all that, and maintaining that sort of as a North Star is really important, because otherwise you lose governance and you so many other things. So I fully agree.
Yeah. One question to Arno probably, the kind of customer acquisition strategy, for example, Chinese competition within China are quite intense. For example, I have exposure to those discussions, and I learned that, for example, if you are running an Alibaba Cloud or Ali Cloud, and then Huawei would pitch in so hard that they will say, I will move all your infrastructure, all the application, everything, all the data
For free.
For free. And then on top of that, the cloud is spent 50-60% discount and so on, right? And those kind of offers are insane. I mean, customer cannot say, and then suddenly somebody on the business side sitting on top of Paul Lucar's business or such similar group or manufacturing giant, they decide. They don't even ask for the central IT to make a decision, right? How did that kind of, have you, obviously I'm sure you would have thought about building that kind of customer acquisition strategy. And practically it's not feasible in European cost to spend basis. So what are the alternate plans that, have you thought about those, that how would you do that?
Well, I think it depends a little bit on what kind of target you're looking for. So, for instance, I mean, the big enterprise, of course, they look for other things than small, medium businesses or developers. For instance, we just launched a startup program. So because we saw that Google Cloud and Amazon and basically also Microsoft, they are very strong in the startup community. Obviously, they just paid in 100K, 200K for their startups to basically we also do that now. So and we also see a lot of positive feedback on that. So that's moving. But of course, I mean, and again, I mean, maybe that's maybe just one thing to remember. Of course, we don't really have that deep pocket. We are not a $1 trillion dollar company yet. So that's of course then you can be played in a different league. But I think again, I mean the reason, I think not only commercial and let's say based on incentive switch or migration to one cloud product to another, I don't think that's sustainable. So I think it has to be really thought through. Is the data secure, and basically is everything set up? Is it flexible? I mean, just spoke about the vendor lock-in, which is a big topic for so many people. Basically, wow, damn, I mean, I'm just locked in, so I cannot get that out. So I think we are super flexible on that. No egress fees, which is also something which is often forgotten in the sales process with all the big hyperscalers. I mean, that adds up to 20, 30, even 40% of the total cloud bill is egress costs, which is it's not justified at all. I mean, it's just we have zero. So and I think, can we do things better in terms of marketing, in terms of acquisition? Probably yes, but we're working on it. So keep an eye on us. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Arno. Thank you, Arno. Yeah, we are closing the end, so let's give a big hand to Aleksi. Yeah, so as a final note and a brief summary, what we just heard. So like Aleksi said, Arno and Atte and Arno told us about what and why. Atte going through the digital sovereignty and what is all about. It's about trust. And now the trust has been shaken, and that's basically making the market and the environment volatile. Also, that it's not only commercial actors that need to kind of act, but it's also a political thing, and to ensure that we have in EU the citizens and consumers' data and the sovereignty saved. Arno told us about UpCloud, that hey, there's an alternative already available. Aleksi showed that, yeah, there are gaps. Yeah, let's be honest on that. But it's about assessing where does it matter and what is the weight of the technology gap there. Do we have workloads, so the applications and data platforms and so on, that can reside, for example, in a hybrid environment? So it's not kind of a one-off like a bold black and white, but that, hey, we keep the current, but hey, let's these where we have the most severe and critical data, can we there then utilize an European alternative? Yeah, Aleksi gave us some good actionable points that how you can next week and during the first half and during this year act on, and hopefully the last point doesn't come up at least too soon, but that is what you need to consider or should consider, that hey, the market is volatile, the environment is volatile, so how you should prepare for from business continuity perspective to the future. Thank you all. Have a nice day, and please grab some UpCloudians and Solitans if you will. So thank you. All right.
Cheers.